Good morning, and it's Monday, the 8th of January 2018, and I'm Cheryl Andrews, the founder of Step by Step Listening. I'm here on the Step by Step Listening page with Motivational Monday, and it's my intention for the next 8 weeks to be here around this time, between 8 and half past, to share with you some top tips to help you turn your dreams into reality. So today I want to talk about how to make things happen. One of the things that people often come to me and say to me that, Cheryl, you're really good at making things happen. People say that I motivate them to create change in their life. And I sat and thought about it over the weekend, and I thought, how do I do that? What is my process? What is it that I'm doing when I make things happen, whether it's in my life or in other people's lives? And I want to share that process with you today, so I hope that will be useful to you. So step one won't come as any surprise to you. It's clarity. It's actually really, really knowing what it is you want. So I want you to think about, what is it you'd like to have happen? What is it that you want? And then I want you, the thing that often happens is people might write down, I want to grow my business, or I want my children to be happy, or I want to lose weight. So we have a sort of standard statement we might do. So write it down and have a think about what you want to have. And first of all, check, are you writing down what you want, or are you writing down what you don't want? And it's getting really, really, really clear about what you want. Now, if you have a look at those words, I want you to notice what happens with them, because in my experience, for me personally, if I just write a statement like I want to lose weight or I want to grow the business, they are just words, and they kind of hang around outside my head or they're inside my head, and they're quite a logical response to it. So what I've discovered over the years when I'm helping people to make decisions, to get absolute clarity about what they want, their decisions often lack depth, height and breadth. They're very kind of linear, they're just very objective, or they can be very emotional, like, I don't want to be this upset anymore, I'm fed up of being depressed, I don't want to. So it can either be really, really emotional or very logical. But what we need is both. So first of all, we need to make sure that we get the whole of you involved in this decision, so that your heart's involved, your soul's involved, your body and your head. And I love the Meeting of the Minds by Helen Monahan, which is Successful Business Minds, her book. And I talk about her book in my book, is that we talk about, so what would your head like to have happen? So if you write your statement down, it might be that it's really come from your heart and it's quite emotionally driven maybe. And maybe you haven't asked your heart what your head would like to have happen. But that also, all of that is going to involve the whole of your body. You're going to have to do something. You're going to have to be something. So check in that, is this thing going to be something the whole of you is buying into? So if you don't buy into your desire, the thing that you want, your dream, the whole of it, you don't really believe in it yourself, you don't really, really want it, then that would be a number one reason why it doesn't happen. So that's why I talk about the height of the actual decision, is thinking about your head, your heart, your body and your soul. What does the whole of you think about that? So whatever your statement is, read that out to yourself and then ask your head what it'd like to have happen, what your heart like to happen, your body would like to happen, and what your soul would like to happen. That way you'll get some different responses, and it will start to put some meat on the bones, if you like. It will start to fill it out and give it some more depth. Now, depending on who you are and the way your brain works, you may well be very much, it might be externally referenced. So it might be about what you want for your children. It might be what you want for your clients. If you're very internally referenced, it might be about what you want for yourself. And actually, for these things to work, we're part of a system. We're part of a universe. We're part of a network of people. And nothing that we do ever is singularly only going to impact us. It's going to impact other people. And if you haven't looked at the width of it, if you like, the impact, the ripple effect of what your decision is going to have. So you need to think about, when you get that, what happens to you, what happens to your family, and what happens to your business or your work life if you don't own your own business. So you need to get the width of it by thinking about all of the key areas. If you decide you're really on a global mission, your width will get wider. So it's like, okay, so what happens to my community? What happens to my country? What happens to the world? So when I focus on this, your goal, and you talk to yourself, when you focus on your goal and your dream, when it becomes a reality, see how wide you can go with this right now. Because the truth is, your subconscious knows that you're part of a bigger system. It knows that you really matter, that you have value, and that you will make a big impact to other people. And even if you don't believe it and you don't know it, if you're not consciously aware that you, let's say you make a decision to, I just want to retreat from the whole world, I want to ignore the whole world, your subconscious will not support that. It may do for just a short period of time if it knows the time frame, which I'll talk about that in a moment, because it might be about you healing, it might be about you just taking care of nurturing yourself. That's a different thing. But it actually knows that you really matter, that your story's got value, that the things that you, the gifts and talents that you were put on this planet to share with other people, it knows that when you show up as the whole of you and you do what you're supposed to do, that you're going to have a global impact. And it might be really hard to imagine that, but right now, if you show up and you do your best work with your next client, and you have your best conversation with your partner, and you have your best conversation with your clients and your friends and family, then they get heard and understood, and then that ripples out, and that's how you have the impact on the world. You being the best version of you, just doing what you want to do in your little world, but doing what really, really lights you up, what really is your passion and what makes you feel amazing about yourself. That is what's going to make it work. So you need to check that this clarity thing, this thing you've written down, is it covering both your own health and well-being? Is it covering the health and well-being of your business and of your family? And if you're really brave and you're ready to go there, it's like your community and the globe, your country, etc. Go wider with it. So we've got the height of your decision, we've got the width of your decision, and now we need to look at the depth of your decision. In my experience, depending what your time profiles are, how you perceive time, is you will either be someone who is very in the moment. You might even be very reflective. You might even be writing down what you don't want to have happen again because of something that's happened. So your outcome might be based on actually the past. You may be very futuristic. You might be actually thinking like in the next 100 years or the next 10 years or the next 5 years. And the reality is that as human beings, we're going through time all the time. As I'm speaking to you right now, I'm living in the past, present, and future. And our language is always talking about past, present, and future. And what I find people doing is that they're not checking out their clarity, that what's the impact on. So I could eat chocolate today, but what would be the impact on my health tomorrow? Well, 1 bar of chocolate's not going to happen. But if I did it every day and I did 5 bars of chocolate every day, the impact in 10 years' time is that, you know, I could die of a heart attack, I could have obesity or whatever. So sometimes we make decisions that have what I call a short-term instant gratification. So they have a feel-good factor right now. So like, I don't know, taking some time off. You know, you'll feel better, but if I didn't work at all for a year and I didn't contribute to the world and show up as the way I want to do, that wouldn't have a long-term impact on it. So it's really important that you think about what, you know, the thing that you're asking for, what do you want to have happen for that right now, right today, 90 days from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, and 10 years. And be kind to yourself, because each of us do have a different way of processing time, and there's lots of different reasons why we cannot perceive time. Those of you know Mark and I really well. Mark is on the wealth dynamics, he's on the temple energy, he's very in the moment, he's very much about, and he's really good at managing time to the last minute, if you like. He often underestimates what he can get done in time, whereas I tend to be much more at the top. I tend to overestimate what I think I can get done, and I tend to be very futuristic, whereas he tends to be very present or past. We can work as partnership because we know that about ourselves, and we can learn to develop the things that we're not particularly good at. But the clarity, my experience says, if you haven't got clarity of the impact this decision today is going to have on the future, whether the future is tomorrow, next week, next year, then again, your subconscious does know it. It's paying attention to it. It knows that if you continue to do this, it won't be good for you. And it's up to you to update it to say, actually, whilst chocolate's a good one, because that's what I'm changing over since Christmas, and I have been changing over the last sort of year, looking at what I eat and when I eat it, is that chocolate is a reward. It tastes nice for a few minutes in my mouth, but if I pay attention to a few minutes later, I tend to have a bit of a headache, I don't feel particularly good. And so my decision, I want to have something nice. If I get really clear about that, and I want that nice to last more than 20 seconds, then that nice has to be something that tastes really nice now, that feels a bit of a sort of treat. It's something special, because that's what the chocolate gives me. And it's going to leave me without the headache in an hour's time. It's going to leave me with loads of energy at the end of the day. And at the end of this month, I'm going to feel better about myself. And in my life, I'm going to have the ability to extend my life by not eating rubbish food. I hope that makes sense. Zoe and Wendy, I can see you've joined me. If that's kind of making any sense, please put some comments just so I know I'm not talking absolute garbage, because in my head, it seems really, really clear. But I haven't written it out. I've written a blog about this, and I will put the post of the blog in the comment once I put the video up live. So that's the thing I want you to think about, is clarity. Often when we think about what we want, the one reason why we're not making it happen is actually we don't have as much clarity as we think. We need to be really, really clear. Do we mean what we say? Are we saying what we mean? And obviously with the most important thing is to make sure that what we're saying isn't mean, because we don't want to be mean to ourselves. We don't want to be mean to people around us, and we don't want to be mean to the world, because it backfires. Ultimately, the human nature is that it's when we are mean to people, it's because we're scared, we don't feel safe, there's things that are worrying us, and therefore it's not done it's not done from I need to be horrible, it's I need to protect myself. And so if we can do it without being mean to ourselves and others, I truly believe that will be the opportunity for us to get inner peace into our own world, to have more peace, and then ultimately I'd love to see world peace. So number one is clarity. Number two is confidence. Now, confidence can come from you. So you think about the what thing you want. So let me say I'm going to use my losing weight, because that's just where I'm at the moment. That's what I'm working on. So for me to lose weight, I can look at what has worked in the past. So I've been a Slim and Well consultant. I've done lots of cooking. What I know that works is if my food is colourful and it's bright. It works if I have a plan. So I have to know at the morning, which reminds me, I don't actually know what I'm having for dinner tonight. So I need to know what I'm doing for food. I need to have it all prepped well in advance before I'm hungry. So that's what has worked in the past. So that's where confidence can come from, is looking at what's worked. I can look at what is working. And I can look at, so that brings my mind to present tense. And so for me, I can look at what is working. And so some things that I'm practicing at the moment is drinking just over a pint of water first thing the minute I get up, before I've even cleaned my teeth, and then waiting 45 minutes before I eat. That is really, really working. Having my breakfast a little bit later, and then 2 hours later, which sounds really weird, having my lunch at 2 hours later. And then I don't need to eat dinner for 6 or 7 hours. And that gives me plenty of time to get loads of work done. It gives me plenty of time to prepare and really enjoy and savor that evening meal. So that's what is working. And if it was just the way I'd like it to be, I would create more time for creating new recipes. I really love cooking. And so that's what I'd be looking at. So I want you to think about the thing that you want, what has worked in the past, what is working. And if it was just the way you'd like it to be, it would be like what? Now, again, depending where your time frames are, depending how your brain processes time, you might find it easier to reflect back, and you might find it easier to go forward. Now, for me, I find it easy to imagine what it would be like. And I've had to learn and practice to really think about what is working. And in order to be able to reflect effectively on what has worked, I've had to learn to journal, to do videos, to do recordings, because that wasn't naturally where my brain goes. It isn't naturally. And actually, that was one of the things that really stopped my confidence. It stopped me from, it's great to help other people, to motivate other people to get change, because I was tracking what they had been doing and what had worked, and I was giving that feedback to them. But I didn't have, until probably about 4 years ago, a way of tracking what it is I did, so that I could look back and think about and remember. It was more a memory thing, remember what had worked for me in the past. So if at this moment you go, I have no idea what has worked, then start religiously today to track it. Be aware of what works for you. Keep hold of it as in a journal, or record on video or audio, whatever way you do it, track it in some way. You could ask friends and family, because they're probably better at noticing what works for you and what they've seen work for you before, and just honour whatever they say, even if you don't really agree with it, because you may not remember it the same way they do. But it's a way of collecting data of things that has worked for you in the past. So what do you do with the confidence if the thing that you want, you've never done it before? So a good example would be me writing a book. Then you have to talk to other people. You have to speak to other people and ask them what's worked for them. And what I will say to you is just be really, really mindful. Going back to the clarity, you might say, I'm doing it now, and I'm saying, oh, it's just 3 steps. It is never just 3 steps. It's never just 7 steps of clarity. People will give you the overview. So like they'll tell this, if you went to someone and said, how do you drive a car? They'll probably go, well, you turn the ignition, yeah, you put your foot on the clutch, you put it into gear and you go. Right? That isn't how you drive a car. You need to know what the signs on the road are. You need to know about the clutch points. You need to know first gear. You need to do mirror signal maneuver. You need to check you've got your seatbelt. There's so many little nuances in between. And when we ask another person who's really good at what they do, they won't remember the years and years and years and years of information and the iterations and the step-by-step process they went through in order to get better at what they do. And what they'll do is give you a quick overview of what it is, and you won't have the detail. So ask other people, but be willing to ask more questions to get into the nuances of it. But the other thing is, before you ask other people, just trust yourself for a little bit longer and ask yourself what you do already know about this. Even if it's based on your imagination, if you see other people doing, if you want to be more organized and you see someone who's really organized, just be playful. Let that inner child in you have a bit of curiosity time and just think, so what do I think it is they must be doing? What is it? How do I think their brain must be working? What do I think they do in order to be organized? Because you do know so much more than you realize. And that's where confidence can come from. If you allow yourself to know where you're at, if you go to an expert and ask loads and loads and loads of people for what works, you'll get loads of information. It's like a gushing waterfall. If you think about what you already know and you get real clarity about what you know, you'll know the little pieces that, oh, actually, I can do step 1, 2, 3, but I'm not sure how to get from here to here. There's a gap in my thinking. And when you go to an expert, you can go with your bucket just to catch that piece of information. You're not trying to sort of like be swamped by all their waterfall of stuff that they've got and then trying to sort of come out for air going in overwhelm that, oh no, it's all too complicated, it's all too much, it's like it's too difficult. Because it's really hard when someone says, oh, you just have to just get clarity, just get confidence and just change it. If that's what I was saying to you about the Make It Happen process, it'd be easy to think, oh, it's easy. And then when you don't find it as easy as you think you should, then it can knock your confidence. So be mindful when you ask experts, they never tell you the nuances and the little details, and they don't tell you how long it took them to get there because they've lost that conscious awareness. It's become autopilot to them, so they're not consciously aware of all the little tiny bits that it takes to it. So know yourself really well first and know which pieces you need. Then you can ask them specifically for that piece of information so you won't get so much information. The other thing you can do to build confidence is to know yourself really well. And one of the things I do is help people model out what's happening when you work at your best, what's happening when you're learning at your best, and what's happening when you live at your best, both when you're doing it independently and with other people. The more you model out, and there's some theories about if you've got 3 or more models, and I've noticed if you do 6 or more models, then you get a blueprint of how you are. So when someone's giving you information, you'll understand why you can't process it. And instead of giving yourself a hard time and thinking you're stupid because you can't learn, you'll know that you learn and you need it written down, or you learn and you need to be able to hear it, or you learn and you need to physically experience it. And so you'll know that the reason why you're not taking on the information as well as you'd like to is just because the environment for you to learn in isn't appropriate for you. And you can adapt then. So you won't waste time trying to manage that critic in your head that's saying, oh, you're it's too much, can't do this. You can just go, oh, it's just my learning style. It's just the way I learn. And so one of the things for confidence is that track what works for you and keep a record of it. Ask experts after you know what works for you and what you already know. And pay attention to how you work, learn and live, because then you can be selective about who it is you ask the information of, when you ask of it and how you ask for it. You can get it in a way that's going to help you to grow and be the best version of you. That's confidence. Change. Whatever goes on, if you want to make something happen, if you want to turn a dream into reality, something will need to change. And the truth is that our brain is a pattern spotting mechanism, and it doesn't really like change because it likes to be able to predict what's coming. So one of the things you can do is start to think about what needs to change. So what needs to happen? How do you need to be? And start talking about that as though it's in the present tense, and start thinking about how that could be, because then that starts to set your brain up to have more confidence. It knows that you're going to be more confident, you're going to be more assertive. And the minute you've given it some thought, it stops resisting the change. But also we need support. we need to be able to change behavior. So we need to practice it, we need to be persistent, and we need praise. And you have got to find a way to practice that new behavior and get peer support. So the one thing I want to talk about a lot here is that when we ask other people to help us with those change processes, do manage your critic. Don't go to people and say, if you spot me doing this wrong, tell me, because that just totally destroys your confidence. It doesn't help. But what you want to do is catch yourself doing it right. I want you to notice when something changes, even if it's a really slight change. So let's say, for example, for me yesterday, I did eat some chocolate, but instead of finishing the whole box, I just had 3 and I put the box of chocolates away. And that is unknown for me. Well, actually, I have started to do that quite a bit in the last year, but go back 10 years ago, once I'd opened the box, I'd have to finish it. So that's a change. So I can focus on and give myself a hard time for the fact I ate 3 chocolates. Maybe it was 4, not sure. Maybe I should have counted that. Or I can focus on the fact that I only ate 3 chocolates. And then I can really, really celebrate that change. So notice change, celebrate it, and catch yourself doing things right. And when you get peer support, ask other people to catch you doing things right. Don't invite them to catch you doing it wrong. And learn to celebrate the change. Now, if you think about when things go wrong, what tends to happen, we get the whole of our body. So going back to the clarity process about getting the whole of your body involved, we want to get the whole of our system involved with change and celebrating it. So what tends to happen when we don't like something that's going wrong, we go, oh, it's gone wrong again, oh no. And we'll scrunch our face up and we'll pull our whole body in and we'll talk about it to everybody and we'll say it's fed up, or we might talk about it to ourselves and we might write about it and we rant about it and we put loads of energy into it. And then when something goes right, you go, oh yeah, I did that better today. And we give it hardly any airtime, we give it any attention whatsoever. So really start to notice that these small changes there. If you think about sports people, if they get like 1 second faster their personal best, that's like they're 1 second better than they were before, they go yes or yeah. So think of something as you can do, whether it's a big smile, whether it's talking about, gosh, that's, you know, it's great, I only had 3 chocolates yesterday. Whatever it might be for you, is really get your whole body involved, get people outside of you involved with celebrating those changes. And it might be difficult for them because our brain is hardwired to look for things not going right. So if you've said to somebody you want to be more assertive at work, you're going to start going out, going to do networking, and then they notice you haven't been out networking for ages, their brain's going to be like, oh my gosh, they haven't done it. So you might need to help them. You need to set them up for success so that you have a system in place that they know when or how often you're going to be doing it, so they know whether this is normal or it's not happening. And also, what do you want to have happen? How do you want them to call you up on it if it's not going the way you expected it to, the way you planned to, and what you've committed to doing? So with Mark, what we've agreed is if I go, oh, I just want chocolate, or whatever it is I might say, I've agreed, and I'm the one that's created this statement, he didn't. And I said, what would work for me is if you said, do you really want that? And it doesn't come across as him challenging me or being sarcastic, because I've said that's what would work for me. So it goes back to confidence. I know what would work for me is for me to make me stop and really, really think about that decision I'm just about to make. Is it what I really want right now, or is it just a knee-jerk reaction? Is it an emotional response to something else that's not working, and the chocolate's just something like it's a comfort thing? Or is it like I feel really empty, I feel really clear, I've exercised loads, and I really don't believe that 1 chocolate's going to do me any harm? So he will just check with me, do you really want it? And I stop and I have a think about it. And sometimes I go, no, actually I don't. Or yeah, I do. And the agreement is that he won't challenge me after that. If I've made the decision as an adult that I want to have that thing, then it's fine. So the peer support is really, really structured. It's really clear, i.e. clarity, of what I want in terms of support, when I want it, and how it's best delivered in order for me to receive it. So think about those. I hope that's of use to you. I'm going to call it a day. I didn't realize I've been on here for 24 minutes. I get so excited to sharing this stuff. Hope you have an amazing week. I want to leave you with this thought that please do check out stepbystep.listening.com/events. Clarity and confidence retreats are now on there for a year, so you can check out. There's only 5 to 6 places, 5 normally, 6 at a push, depends who we've got booked, and depending whether it's a summer we can use the outside or not. You've got 5 places there. There's a few places left on the early ones of January, February, March. If you're interested, come along, spend some time with me, get that clarity, get the confidence boosted up, and let's make that change happen, because the world is waiting for you. If you can't and you don't live locally and you're really interested in making things happen, then I'm partnering with Karen Williams when we're running 4 this year, virtual retreats. We're going to see how those go, where we get online at Zoom. You create your space somewhere, and we check with you in the morning what you'd like to have happen. We ask you how you need to be and what resources will support. So start helping you think about how you need to be to make your dreams a reality. A lot of Karen's clients that will come on will be people that are writing books, but for me, often there's other stuff you need to sort out before you can create time and space in your diary to make the book a reality. So you can use both of us as resources on those days. And then you go off in your own space, you do the thing you say you're going to do, and then you can come back and have coaching if you get stuck or you're procrastinating or something's stopping you. If you find your critic giving yourself a hard time, you check in with us. But we will be stopping in at lunchtime and celebrating the changes that have happened and really embedding them, taking a break, then coming back and setting ourselves up for success the afternoon, and then finishing again at the end of the day with a celebration of changes that have happened. So that gives you virtual access to 2 highly skilled coaches that can ask you questions, can celebrate the things that are working well with you if you don't often sort of remember that and don't keep your attention on it. So there are 2 things to keep an eye out in this year, 2018. But below right now, please feel free to use this as the opportunity to share your dreams. What would you like to have happen in 2018? Happy New Year to all you. Lots of love. Speak to you soon. Bye.